Welcome to Organized Chaos, the podcast dedicated to helping seven-figure companies grow to nine-figure ones by turning HR into rocket fuel for their growth. I'm your host, Nahat Kairala, and I've been helping companies do just that for more than a decade. In each episode, I'll dive into HR topics that have a significant impact on your company's growth and leave you with actionable advice that will help your business reach its full potential. Let's dive right in and start organizing all that HR chaos. Welcome to episode 2. Today, I want to shine a light on the human resources function. It is often not given the same level of support, funding, and priority by business leaders, especially those at early-stage startups, yet there is ample evidence of its positive impact on businesses. Throughout my career, I've noticed that many leaders don't fully appreciate how HR can help their business. Believe it or not, I see this more often at fast-growing companies. And I get it. Founders and CEOs of young, growing organizations are mostly focused on the product, revenues, and the overall financial health of the business. You're fully invested in your startup, and it makes complete sense to focus on these things because they directly impact your company's viability and sustainability. If you're a founder, I really don't blame you for having HR at or near the bottom of your list of priorities. I say this because almost all founders and CEOs of upstart companies don't have a deep understanding of the HR function outside of its traditional role. Think payroll, benefits administration, labor law compliance, and all the equally fun stuff that most business leaders don't understand or really have any time for. For example, day-to-day recruitment activities like sourcing, screening, and interviewing do not move the needle for a company. But with a focused strategic purpose, these activities can be game changers for the business and the difference between hiring mediocre or top-tier talent. Most people think of HR as a necessary evil, something you need to eventually live with and pay for to handle all the issues that pop up with a growing workforce. Before we debunk this idea that HR is just a necessary administrative function, I think it's important to talk about why many business leaders don't think of HR as a growth-enabling function. I think there are 3 main reasons why HR doesn't always get the attention it deserves. The first reason is myopic vision from leadership. Business leaders, needing to deliver results, often concentrate on areas that have a direct and easy-to-measure impact on revenue and growth, like sales, product development, and marketing. Those are the things that investors and business owners are interested in. In such an environment, HR is frequently under-budgeted and mostly serves as an administrative and reactive function. Companies with these HR circumstances sometimes bury HR under another function, like finance, legal, or operations. To get the best value from HR, the function should always report to the person leading the organization. The second reason is HR's inability to impact the business. Unfortunately, many HR professionals do not fully understand the ins and outs of the businesses they work for. I recently came across a study from 2017 by Korn Ferry that studied the biggest skill gaps in searching for chief HR officers. Business acumen was the highest ranked skill gap with 41% of the survey respondents. The skill that ranked second was the ability to turn strategy into action, and that one received 28% of the votes. When you combine these 2 skill gaps, you get a CHRO that doesn't understand the business and therefore cannot do anything meaningful that will help the company achieve its strategy. A CHRO like this loses credibility and the ability to influence critical business decisions. Quite honestly, business leaders will be able to tell when the CHRO doesn't understand what's happening in the business, and that causes the entire HR function to lose credibility and respect. The third reason is HR silo thinking. A 2024 Human Capital Trends report by Deloitte showed that only 10% of workers strongly think that their HR department meets their specific needs. To me, This is an indictment on HR teams, which says they are simply disconnected from the realities of the businesses they serve. This generally stems from the tendency of HR teams to focus on their own departmental agenda as opposed to aligning their roadmap to the business objectives. This siloed view creates a gap between HR, other departments, and the business at large. If an HR leader is always buried in the day-to-day operations of their department and following directions from their leader, then employees will grow skeptical of the department's ability to make an impact. In my opinion, the biggest mistake that growing startups make is that they do not hire the right HR leader early on. And by early on, I mean when the company is approaching 30 to 40 employees and expecting accelerated growth. Bamboo HR's State of HR Leadership Report for 2023 shows that only 35% of the Inc. 100 startups have dedicated HR support. You'll find a link to the report in the show notes. For those of you who are not familiar with the Inc. 100, it is a list of the 100 fastest growing publicly held small companies in the US, ranked by their revenue growth over the past 3 years. Just to put this into perspective for you, in 2023, company number 100 on the list had a 3-year revenue growth of more than 4,700%. The top 10 had a 3-year revenue growth of more than 20,000%. These are astronomical growth numbers, yet only 35% of these companies have dedicated HR support. Now that begs the question, if most of the Inc. 100 can do without HR, then why can't your company do the same? Apart from the obvious compliance and legal risks, there is evidence that shows that companies with strong HR capabilities are more likely to succeed than those who do not. A 2019 study of more than 2,000 companies by IBM and Josh Bersin found that companies with strong HR capabilities are 2 to 2.5 times more likely to be more profitable than their peers, 1.5 to 4.5 times more likely to outperform their peers in revenue growth, and 1.8 to 6 times more likely to be more innovative than their peers. In contrast, companies with poor HR capabilities are 10 times less likely to be innovative. Also, these companies never grow revenues faster than their competitors. Finally, only 10% of companies with poor HR capabilities have profits that are above average. So the main takeaway here is that investing in HR is actually good for business. It results in better innovation, better revenue growth, and higher profitability than your competitors. The HR capabilities that your startup needs will change over time as your company continues to grow. I'll talk about the different HR capabilities a fast-growing company needs in the next episode. So how do you position your company to start building strong HR capabilities? Throwing money at HR is not the solution. From my experience, it is virtually impossible for a growing company to build strong HR capabilities without an HR leader who will hold themselves and other leaders accountable. Let me explain. There is a common misconception that HR capabilities are the sole responsibility of the HR team and only they should be accountable for them. Wrong. What if your CFO just wings it when interviewing candidates, although HR has prepared and rolled out an interview guide for that job in collaboration with said CFO? What if a new hire met with her manager for the first time after 2 weeks from their start date, although HR has designed and communicated a clear onboarding process that requires managers to meet their new hires on day one? In situations like these, you need an HR leader who is empowered and capable of holding people accountable. Someone who can articulate how actions like these negatively impact the business and be a guide and coach to help the company move in a better direction. Whenever I'm working with CEOs, I always recommend that the head of the HR function report directly to them, not the CFO, not the CEO, or whatever other function that's in vogue at the time. HR is a department that manages core functions and initiatives that directly impact your most expensive asset, your people, an asset that is hard to find yet so easy to lose. In today's knowledge-based economy, companies spend anywhere from 50% to 80% of their operating expenses on their employees. So I think it's fair to say that HR is a mission-critical function that deserves the CEO's attention. Name me any other function whose actions influence more than 50% of operating spend, yet is not reporting to the CEO. Feel free to chime in the comments section. Also, don't think of your HR department as a standalone department. It is the glue that holds everything together. HR is what I call an umbrella department. When done right, HR is a key player that influences strategy and advises on the best structure to achieve the company's goals. They find the right people for the job and put them in a position to do their best work. Rockstar HR teams will even influence day-to-day work processes that impact the company's core business operations. They also use the latest tech tools to make everything run smoothly and enable a positive employee experience. In short, when done right, HR becomes the secret ingredient that makes everything in the company click. Now let's talk about how you can position HR as a growth enabler in your company. First, HR needs to become an integrated function within the organization. In other words, HR's agenda has to be closely aligned to the business and not seem like the department is beating to the tune of its own drum. Only then can HR hope to be a growth enabler. For example, if your company plans to expand into Europe and the Middle East in the next 3 years, HR has to understand what that means in order to support that expansion. Are we hiring employees in those markets or expanding through third-party agents? Do we plan on opening offices or will we hire remotely? Which specific countries will we be entering and by when? Will this expansion require us to hire international counterparts to existing roles, or are there new skills and capabilities that we'll need to hire for that do not currently exist in the company? These are just some of the questions the HR function should ask based on this expansion scenario. Finally, I want to leave you with 5 questions you can ask to start positioning the HR function as a growth enabler in your company. Question number 1. What is our HR strategy and how does it help the business meet its goals? This is the most important question to ask internally because it will immediately tell you if your HR function is in a position to enable the company's growth. An HR function with a misaligned strategy can often become a bottleneck and derail accelerated growth. Question number 2. What is the organization structure that the company needs to achieve its goals, and how can HR make it happen? The org structure is probably the area that growing companies overlook the most as they are scaling. Oftentimes, they only address the org structure when issues become very obvious and start impacting results. I like asking this question frequently because it keeps org design on top of mind for business leaders and ensures that HR is being proactive about it. I can't tell you the number of times in which I've seen companies derail their progress because of inadequate org structures. Org design is a massive topic that I plan on addressing in future episodes. Question number 3. What kind of skills and behavioral profiles should your employees have to help the business meet its goals and succeed? How can HR identify, attract, hire, and retain these people? This one is self-explanatory. Every business requires a specific set of skills in order to deliver its products and services. Some of these skills can create a competitive advantage, and it's very important for HR to be on top of their game when it comes to attracting, hiring, and retaining your skilled employees. A behavioral profile is the description of a person's behavioral traits, which includes their personality, motivations, strengths, weaknesses, communication style, and general ways of working. Understanding what types of behavioral profiles your company needs is very important because It will allow you to minimize the number of bad hires and retain more employees who are compatible with your workforce and company culture. Question number 4. How can we build an HR operations infrastructure that will scale efficiently as we grow and is integrated with the core areas of the business? HR infrastructure is more than just deploying HR software. It's about building an efficient operation that will scale as the company grows while keeping operating costs low. Also, HR systems house a goldmine of information about your employees that can be leveraged to make business decisions outside of the HR department. For example, you might want to measure the ROI of sales training by combining training data from the HR system, sales data from the CMS, and costing data from the accounting system. Question number 5. What kind of data does HR need access to in order to deliver valuable insights that are aligned with the company's goals? This question piggybacks off of question number 4. In order for HR to deliver maximum value, it needs access to information that might not be available to the function by default. The example I used in the previous question about training ROI requires access to sales data and financial data, which HR doesn't typically have access to unless they ask for it. Well, that's all for episode 2, and I hope this gave you a little bit of an overview on how HR impacts growth, profitability, and how to position HR in your company to become a growth enabler. In the next episode, I'll talk about the 5 HR capabilities every growing company needs and leave you with actionable advice on how to start developing those capabilities.